All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor, and I'm here with Jaden.
Geek.
And we got Calvin.
Hey.
And this is one that Jaden suggested. This is one of your favorites.
Yeah, I love this movie.
We're talking about Jojo Rabbit today. And this is a Taika Waititi film.
Yeah.
I love the way you say it. You say it different every time.
Tackle Whitehead. Takabudu Wakatiti. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Right.
I like the movies he does.
Yeah, I watched, I think it's Hunt for the Wilder People.
Yeah.
A little bit before I saw this, and it feels different, kind of the way it's filmed and everything, but it's still a lot of like that same
goofiness,
Taika Waititi humor.
Yeah.
And that is, this movie is lousy with that.
Yeah.
But this came out in 2019, had a budget of $14 million. It made $90 million. Like, it did really well for being a rated R Hitler movie.
Yeah.
it was actually pretty successful. Yeah, so like my first thoughts on this is it's the Nazi comedy everyone's been waiting for. This film is like a laugh a minute until it's not, and then it kind of knocks the wind out of you by reminding you that like this really happened.
Yep.
And I think a satire is really good in the way that you can deliver a story that would usually like upset people or outrage people, but then when you can kind of make fun of it, you can still deliver the elements of that story while not making it totally unpalatable for people.
Yeah.
So I like the way this is done and the story it's telling, and it works because there's humor built into it. But yeah, there are definitely parts where kind of the wind gets sucked out of it, and you're like, oh, yeah, right, I forgot. This is awful.
Yeah, it is. There's definitely parts like that. And there's a lot of parts with a huge gut punch at one point in this movie. And like, I understand there's like a lot of people who don't like this movie because they don't think it's appropriate to joke about stuff like that. And like, I get it, man. If you're not a fan of that kind of stuff, if you don't believe that, you know, you're not going to find this humorous, or you don't want to see humor and things like that, that's fine. You know, this movie's not for you. That's fine. But I think that there's very powerful things into this movie about making not light of situations, but showing you like a different side of what probably happened in like some young kid's mind in Germany.
Right.
Like,
yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, I think this is interesting. Like, we don't really have like any personal connection to these types of stories. So we want to be, you know, we want everyone to know that we're aware of that. But I think there's a power that satire has. And I think this is an important movie for a few reasons, not least of which is that the power that comedy has to undermine tyrants. And I mean, Mel Brooks, you know, famous Jewish director who created the film The Producers, and that satirizes Hitler and Nazism as well, is quoted as saying, like, rhetoric does not get you anywhere because Hitler and Mussolini are just as good at rhetoric. But if you can bring these people down with comedy, they stand no chance. And we see this still today with internet memes of Xi Jinping as Winnie the Pooh, the cave meme.
Right.
Yeah, and even like the picture of Trump with his hair getting blown back in the wind. Like, these men hate those images.
Right.
And I think that's everything you need to know about, like, what, you know, this subject matter might be uncomfortable for everybody to see these people still depicted this way, but when you understand how much more uncomfortable these men are of those images, it really shows you what the power of comedy can bring in terms of cultural awareness to these atrocities.
yeah, absolutely.
No, the fact that you can get a good laugh out of the most like loathsome regime that ever existed, I think just speaks to how well this movie works, like it's satire, and that you kind of get a power out of like making fun of these people, or like, you know, like Hitler and the Nazis, and like that's why it works, and it's not totally offensive. But yeah, I want to move on into the look, like the aesthetic of this film. Like I said, I watched Hunt for the Wilder People, and then Taika Waititi also did the Thor Ragnarok, and he's got his own like style to his movies. And I thought this one was kind of a deviation from that. It's got a lot of like the really quick edits and cuts, which are like an Edgar Wright staple, like Baby Driver and Hot Fuzz. And it seems so weird to me that he feels like he has his own style. And so the way that this movie is edited together felt like he's kind of aping off someone else's style. I thought it was odd. And I kind of wish he just kind of stuck to what he normally does. It just seemed like a weird choice.
And it's definitely different. I liked it. I did like it, though. I especially like the aesthetics of like how the aesthetics change throughout the film, with how Jojo's mindset changes throughout the film. I think it fits with that. But yeah, definitely the cuts and stuff are a lot different than you see in any of his other work.
Yeah.
It didn't really throw me off or anything like that. It didn't bother me or anything like that.
I think I
just thought it fit for this story.
I think I just have a personal problem with Edgar Wright movies. So when I see them pop up in other movies,
I also love Baby Drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really more of it wasn't as consistent as it feels like in those types of movies. They were momentary, like the first scene where he's getting his whole outfit together. But I don't remember a ton of them. That hip hop style of editing. Like you say Edgar Wright, and it's probably more that. But I always think of Darren Aronofsky,
right?
Because that's those are the type of filmmaking I actually care about.
I think the way he edits it is always like in the service of like making you feel uncomfortable, or it's just a constant like shifting around.
Yeah, it's always like action, because not only is it really quick cuts, but it's also like a zoom and then a cut and a zoom out, shoot, and like so there's an added motion to the temporal change of the edits.
Yeah, and I think when Edgar Wright does it, it's always supposed to be like fun, quirky scene, where that is not happening in Aronofsky films. There's nothing fun and quirky about what he puts out.
I mean, I haven't found anything like that in an Aronofsky film. And I think that's what makes Aronofsky great, is nothing is fun about them.
Nope. They're all a nightmare. But I do want to move on to, like Jaden mentioned, kind of how the style and the look of this movie starts off one way and then it slowly changes, like as JoJo's kind of outlook is changing as well. Yeah. I love how the colors and the costumes in this are like really vibrant, and it's such a departure from how we see every other depiction of Germany in World War II films.
Yeah, because they're always like gray and destroyed. This is just very bright. Everything there is so colorful.
Oh yeah, I love the house that JoJo's in. It's like all these yellows and pastels and teals, and there's so much rich color. And then Scarlett Johansson's character has like this amazing wardrobe and these really pretty fancy shoes. And I guess there was the shoes. There was a point made like by Hitler that he wanted like Germany to become like a cultural epicenter, and like fashion would play a role in that. So I really like the idea of there's like a sense of style to this movie and the look of it that is, again, it's just something we don't see. It's always like war-torn, buildings in rubble, and people have tattered clothes and worn shoes. And in this movie, it's like there's like a real richness to all the costumes.
Yep.
And I love the way Germany is like the idea of depicting it that way is it's so different than the way we see it everywhere else.
Yeah, I also love it because, so I thought this, for a long time I had a hard time differentiating this movie between Moonrise Kingdom.
Very similar.
Yeah. At least I don't know in terms of story or anything like that, but certainly it's, anything Wes Anderson. I just thought this was a Wes Anderson movie because
it looks a lot like it. You're right.
Yeah, because of all the colors and all of the palette and everything. So you have like this atmosphere of surrealism to reinforce the childish perspective of an indoctrinated boy. So you have wild optimism, blind to the atrocity. So I love how you say that's like what Hitler wanted was a cultural hub, and I think that JoJo's perspective is a reflection of that. And then you get that juxtaposed to the desaturated scenes of real tragedy, the hanging of the bodies and the invasion being the two most obvious. So it's almost like the scales fall from his eyes and he's no longer seeing through rose-colored glasses. So I would call the brightness everything seen through JoJo's eyes.
Exactly. That's one thing you make a huge point about is the hanging of the people. And when him and Scarlett Johansson first arrive, and that's when we first see this, he wants to look away. He wants nothing to do with it because I think it's disrupting the image that he has of Germany. And his mom makes him look at it. Like, this is the truth.
Yep, exactly. Like everything that's desaturated then is the reality, and he wants to look away from that. I wish like the reality was kind of brightened and in the end, not to say that these things were good, but that there was the cognitive dissonance that existed in JoJo's mind was being united with like his optimism for what the future would be, while still looking at the reality of what the world really is.
Yeah, I totally, I agree with that. I do. I find the aesthetic of this movie to be like really, really fun, despite like its content, and that really helps with like kind of the humor of it, because it isn't dark and dreary the whole time. Then I feel like, because then you're being beaten over the head with how serious the situation is, and then all of a sudden all the humor doesn't work. So it needs to look a certain way in order for like those points to hit.
Yep. I think it's just along with that, I think it's just a massive part of the storytelling too, which is the whole story is about JoJo's development as a human, and him realizing truth and beauty and what it actually is, not what he's being told it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, one massive scene, like one massive part about this is like unicorns. Like, so like in the beginning, like Hitler jumps out the window like a superhero. He's like, "Oh, I'm off to eat unicorn for dinner."
Yeah.
And then later in the movie, it shows him eating a unicorn, and it's like fucking disgusting looking. Jojo thinking like, "Oh, the stuff that he's doing is great and magical, and like he's a superhero." And then like later on, he realized like, "Oh, that's actually like a horrible thing to do."
Oh yeah, he has a huge like perspectives change.
Yeah,
like it's all represented really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the parts that kind of helps kind of the quirkiness of this movie is the score to it. It's got a lot of like fun poppy stuff in it,
mm-hmm.
and so again, I think that's all that kind of lighter elements working together to kind of ease you into the fact that this is a movie about Nazi Germany, and to not be totally offended as soon as you turn it on.
Yeah. I think it's still really uncomfortable though, because we're watching, we see all of that documentary found footage at the beginning, but we're, listening to a Beatles song.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like, oh, I love this song, but I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, there's certainly there's like certainly a tone they wanted to achieve, and I think the music and aesthetic all like works together. Like what we're seeing in the frame, and then the music accompanying it, all works together to achieve that. So I actually, I usually feel like I've been critical of scores lately, because I think they're either like there's not enough or they're too obvious. But this one was nice. It's not overdone, and it fits in really well, and it's like it's a little quirky, which is kind of how this movie feels.
Yeah. Otherwise, or you have something like The Humans, which had probably the second best score of anything that we've done in the last couple months. I think the best score is probably Mother.
That's funny because Mother has no score, and the Humans has music at the very beginning, and like that's it.
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
They're our best scores. So I want to move on to characters now. Let's just go right into Jojo. It's played by Roman Griffin Davis.
Does an amazing job.
Yeah, I am always like pleasantly surprised when a child actor can like really pull off a character, because it always feels like maybe not like I don't just like, oh, it's whatever, it's a kid, so it's not a big deal if their performance isn't that good.
Yeah, but he's on the screen the entire movie.
Yeah,
so
and I didn't have to do that with this movie because he's so good. It wasn't like he's not so good, but it's okay because he's a kid. He was great, and all of his, there's so much clever dialogue for him, and he's like this like comedic heart of this movie, and he delivers all of it so well. I thought he was great.
Yeah, I honestly think that like my favorite moment of comedy from him is the beginning, where he's getting like, like chalked up by Hitler. Like, yeah, what are we gonna do? We're gonna get out there, and he runs out of the house. He's just like, and he like puts his arms down, just like screaming, whoa! like he's just like hyped up on xenophobia.
Yeah, this
like
fervor he has.
Yeah. But I think it's a really smart move to make him. There's a big change from the book to the movie. In the book, he's like 19. He's a lot older.
Yeah, it starts in 35 too. It doesn't start at the end of the war in the book.
Oh, that's even
so
more
you watch him grow up in the book.
Yeah, okay.
And just continue to be a horrible person.
Yeah, see, that's much different. Like, I don't think that you can say, I don't think that there is a point in to tell a story like that in reference to Nazis. I don't think that we're to the point culturally where we're okay with like looking at a really ugly part of Nazism right now, because its effects are still very obvious in smaller like right-wing groups still.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fact that we like we would create a character that that you would sympathize with just because he's the main character, not because we show anything that he's good for. He would kind of become a countercultural icon for these really disgusting right-wing groups. So I don't think that you can do that. I don't think that you would make a very good movie, even if you had like a message behind it. It's like the same idea with Rorschach in Watchmen. Everybody, like lots of people love Rorschach, but he's not
awful.
He's supposed to, and the same thing with Punisher. Like he's not supposed to be a character that we care about, but they get turned into something else by these groups. So I think making him younger is a good idea.
Yeah.
Especially with the tone that we're trying to go through here.
Yeah, I don't want him to become an icon for the Odinists.
Yeah.
But yeah, and especially because like ideas of nationalism and bigotry are deemed excusable for a 10-year-old boy, because there's no logic or hatred behind the beliefs. It's just the only paradigm he has to work with. So it's a little different with an adult or even a teenager to still hold those same beliefs, because they've reached a point cognitively where they can start to confront the logic of their worldview. So rather than someone trying to hang on to their hatred, it's a boy trying to reconcile his fear of Jews and his love for his imaginary father figure. And I think that's that's part of what's going on here. I think, like what you were saying, it's a lot of identity. That this movie is really more about identity. But so I think it's good to have a more boyish figure here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it. If you don't, then this movie is not a success, because I think that you're going to hate the main character.
Yeah, or it's like
you do in the book. I
Yeah.
hate him in the book.
Yeah, or it's like American History X with Edward
Oh,
Norton.
boy.
Yeah, which is supposed to be, some form of satire, different, obviously not humor, but
Yeah.
it's supposed to be like, hey, this is a terrible way to live your life, and then unfortunately, Nazis see him as a glorified badass. And
Oh yeah,
Yes.
which is awful.
it is a terrible thing.
Yeah, that's like the part that I think that why I think satire sometimes is a little bit not great, because I even think of like South Park. Like I think South Park skewers culture and society and politics perfectly.
I love it. I just watched their newest thing like last night or the night before. It's amazing.
I think you guys are totally right. If he's too old, it doesn't work, and because then it gets sort of like his interaction with Elsa doesn't make any sense then. Because if it's someone who's more mature and understands what he's doing is wrong, then all of this stuff he's writing in this book is all awful. But if it's a little boy who doesn't know any better and he's totally indoctrinated into Nazism, then it's kind of like, oh, he's just a kid, he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
And so it only works if he's younger. And I love the evolution of his character. It's really neat. I love how he uses the letters from Nathan. At first he's using it to like hurt Elsa, and then later on he's like sweet about it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of like just fun elements that like show his change.
Yeah. I mean, like the first letter is like, obviously like he like hates Elsa or whatever it is, and like he sees like it makes her feel bad, and he's like, oh, I did something terrible, and he corrects it right away, because he's not a bad person. He's a sweet kid, and like he doesn't want to be. He wants to be a Nazi, but he can't be.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should just move into Elsa now. She's played by Thomasin McKenzie.
It's a great job too.
Yeah, she's wonderful. I love her introduction. It's like a real old school horror movie.
Dude,
scene.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Like the way the score is and the way the camera like zooms in on the secret door and everything.
and her hand like crawls
Yeah.
out of it. It's amazing.
It's everything is working together to make this really obvious, like have a horror element. And I love that because that's what Jojo would think of a Jew. Like
exactly, yeah.
Like he's like, oh, they have horns and scales and they live in caves. So like it makes total sense, like thematically, why you would introduce her in that way. And I love it. I think it's funny, and it also like it just feels appropriate for like kind of the way he would see her.
Yep.
And I love to Taika Waititi said he wanted her to act like characters from the movie Heathers. Have you guys seen that one?
No.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I know of it, but no, I can't think of. Like, so why though?
It's Winona Ryder's in it, and it's kind of just this group of friends that are like they're like mean and catty and stuff, and like sarcastic and rude, which is exactly how Elsa is in this. And like she's like got a clever cruelness to her, Like she's I love how she's just always making fun of Jojo, but it's always in like a really smart way. And that's kind of a lot of what like Heathers is like. They're like mean girls.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Regina George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that, and Heathers is a really good movie. I need to watch it again to like maybe make that connection a little better. I'd only seen it once, but I picked up on it. I was like, I like that comparison, and the fact that he wanted to model her off of that movie. I'm surprised you haven't seen it. You have a Winona Ryder tattoo, Jade.
I do have a Winona Ryder tattoo from a movie that I've never seen.
Wait, what movie is she from?
That tattoo is from Keanu Reeves' Dracula. I don't think that's what it's called, but I know Keanu Reeves plays Dracula in the movie. And yep.
I love that you don't even know the title.
I had no idea. Just saw the picture in tattoo parlor. I was like, I'll get that one.
But
On my body forever.
Yeah. She has just some of the greatest dialogue, she's kind of making fun of Jojo and like explaining how stupid this like hatred he has for Jews by like really playing up like all these like real tall tales and falsehoods.
Yeah.
I love that. He's like, where are your horns at? And he's like, she's like, they haven't grown in yet, not till you're 21. And she's like, we live in caves and all this stuff. And I love I think my favorite line of hers, she's like, us Jews were like you, but human.
Yeah.
It's just like such a real backhanded thing to say, like understanding like she's really making fun of him.
Yeah.
Not telling some falsehood about herself,
Yeah. And he still doesn't quite understand it,
Right.
because he's been told that they're not human this whole time. So what would you even mean by that? Like that's such a it's such a powerful thing for her to say, because he can't even bring his mind around to think that he wouldn't be human.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. And I don't know. I love her scene with Scarlett Johansson having a conversation about Jojo. And there's ghosts are mentioned quite a few times in this movie. And Scarlett's like, he's not a ghost. He's not, he's just a kid who's freaking been blinded by this stuff. And there's nothing that Scarlett Johansson's character can do, because if she tells him the truth or like what's really going on, then that puts his life in danger.
Right.
And so I just think it's because at first you can see that Elsa doesn't trust Jojo at all.
Right.
She holds a knife up to him and she threatens him like, you better not fucking say anything.
Twice.
Yeah. And then that relationship grows and she starts to trust Jojo.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's wonderful.
I love that. So you mentioned Rosie. We should just move right into that Scarlett Johansson's character as Jojo's mom. I do love, like you said, the knives. There's a scene later when she's like going to like make dinner. She's like, "Where are all the goddamn knives?"
Because she hides them all.
Yeah, I love that because like too, it's like knives are such an important part of like power here, and so the fact that all of the knives are missing. Yeah.
Well, I love the, I guess like the motifs or the symbolism of the knives in the movie, because like they're often used, it's like something to destroy and like cause pain in a very like, medievalish way to do it, I guess, is like you see what's going to happen if you stab somebody.
It's a very personal way to kill someone.
And then the dude with the missing eye, what's his name again?
Sam Rockwell plays Captain K.
Okay, so Captain K, when he finds the knife or whatever, when the Gestapo is searching the house, and he gives it back to Jojo, and he says, "Protect your family with this," as opposed to using it as a weapon to hurt somebody. It really is like it's showing like he is in the same mindset of what Jojo is building towards. I just thought like that was a great part. I don't know, like a little off track there, but
no, you're totally right. Like too, and plus we talk about like if you want to hop on the Jung train here for a moment, like that's a Freudian symbol of like phallic power.
Do you want to?
Yeah, get me on the train.
Carl.
Oh man. I'm sure nobody else thinks this is funny if you've been listening with us the whole time, but
Don't care.
We love it.
I will never get sick of pressing that button to play that clip.
I sprung for this model specifically so that we could have sound pads. But yeah, so it's obviously, so that's, a Freudian symbol as well, phallic power. It's really synonymous with the power to protect and destroy because it's, it's piercing.
Yeah.
Just like a phallus.
Right.
So it's funny that it's used in so many different ways here. Like that knife drawer thing is so funny to me. I just think he kept confronting her with more and more knives.
Yeah.
She kept stealing them.
I love it. And one of the reasons why I love that line and I love that character, it's a very Taika Waititi character. There's like heart to it. But there's also just so much humor built into like that character and her dialogue. I think Scarlett Johansson does a great job in this.
Yeah, I think she's amazing in this movie.
One of my favorite scenes is when she's like, "Oh, you want to talk to your father?" And she gets like a fake beard and she puts on his jacket and he's like, "Don't ever speak to your mother that way again." And she goes off into the corner. She's like, "I yelled at the boy." She's like, "Well, go apologize." I love like that internal monologue she has with herself as both mother and father. It just is such a fun, quirky scene, and it's just a fun character who also is like a strong female character who has like strong convictions. Like she talks about, she's like, "I don't hate Germany. I hate this war." She's like, "It's stupid and it's pointless and I want it to be over, even if it means Germany loses." Like, she has this like good sensibility about her. And she's also just fun. And she has like, some great lines.
And like, so like in the book, the dad is still around, at least for a little while. And then the grandma is also there. And she really embodies all three of the characters in the movie too, which is a great job about. It was like in the book, like the dad is very anti-Germany and like all this stuff, and he has a lot of arguments with Johansson, whatever his name is in the book. I think that's what it is. And then like when she plays the dad, it's very much like the way he is in the book too, which I think is very cool.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love too, like we've talked before about strong female characters. Like she's kind of helping to lead Jojo, but she's also very interesting and strong in her own right. So it's not like her role is in service of Jojo's development. She's also a reflection of anti-German, like someone who who's against the war in general. Like she's a collection of all of those ideals of like what it means to be against Nazism and what it means to stand for the things that you believe in.
Right? Yeah, and the sacrifices that it makes, that it will take. I mean, she loses her life.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The possibility of her losing her son losing his life too over what she's doing, but it's for the greater good, so she has to.
Right. Yeah.
Like
exactly.
She doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, right. But I love how that's represented in the shoes. Like like her dancing and her tying JoJo's shoes, it's this idea of volition and coming of age. And so for her, and it's also the idea of like we're not free until we can dance in the streets.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really heartbreaking to think of like she's literally free when she's killed. And that's when she's dancing in the street, dancing in the sky. I know that's not necessarily the wordplay that Taika Waititi was probably going for, but that's really what it is. Like I'm free because I made the choice I think was right, and it cost me.
Yep.
No, and I think her death matters a lot because I care about her outside of being JoJo's mom, because she does seem to have the right ideals and care about the right things. So I'm not just sad when she's, you have the scene where JoJo goes and hugs her
and tries to tie her shoes.
Yeah,
that's such a great scene.
Like it is sad because I feel for JoJo, and but it's also sad because I liked her character a lot, and it's sad that she's gone now. So she exists in this movie in a really great way, both as like a great character for JoJo to like help him, but also like on her own. I think she functions really well.
Yeah, I mean, like even when she is helping JoJo, I feel like most of it is like kind of trying to push him to be the right person to kind of grow up. Like when she ties his shoes together when they're on the stairs and she's talking about like love and like how important that is in the world. He's like, oh, I'm never gonna find that. I don't need that type of stuff. Like all he wants to be is a Hitler guard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have Hitler to lead me to the right things.
Right. Yeah, and no, I just think like even like her being a character as much of like as JoJo's development is like so independent on her own as well. Mm-hmm. Like it's not just like she's not just there even in her interactions with JoJo just as a supporting character. Like she's her own person too.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of think of like all of the other characters like that. They're like side characters that kind of symbolize something on their own. Like you were talking about with Captain K, and the whole undercurrent of the repressed homosexuality that he has with Freddie Finkel, and about how like they want to be something other than what they are, but they're kind of trapped right now, and they're upset with themselves, and they want JoJo to make the right decision. They want him to do the things that he believes in, because this is what you'll turn into. You won't be able to act on anything that you actually want. You'll be in a society that hates you.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between having an enemy and then realizing that you could very easily have been an enemy as well.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes is when Captain K and the Gestapo have gone and they're checking out JoJo's house. Elsa's like posing as his sister, and she pulls out the papers. And I like that Captain K like makes a point to be the one to grab the papers because he's gonna end up covering for her. Mm-hmm. And I love that because in a way, like you said, he's trapped too. He's kind of a part of a regime that like wouldn't accept him or his lifestyle. So he's not gonna out someone who also wouldn't be accepted either. I think they're paralleled for like different reasons, but I like that kind of the connection you can make between them. That like they both wouldn't be accepted, so him kind of covering for her, I thought was like a really strong scene, and it shows kind of the moral compass that Captain K has, even though he does bad things. It's like he still is, in a way, trying to be altruistic, like when he can be.
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to use his office to protect someone. And
you see all of the scenes, like when he's like, I mean, in his introduction, when he's talking about, like, apparently we're doing just fine, even though the Allies are backing us all down and stuff. Like
we're on the back foot right now, but apparently everything's okay.
Yeah. Like you can see, like he's very like every time he has to do something like that he knows is wrong. Like in the book burning scene, where you see JoJo like very confused and standing there, like why are we doing this? And then all of a sudden everyone's like cheering him on, making him feel special and part of the group. And he's like, okay, I'll just join in then.
Right.
Which is like I'm sure like what kids who were pushed into Nazi propaganda when they were kids were doing. Like they were like, I maybe don't understand this, but like everyone's telling me I'm special because of my heritage, and like we're all celebrating me for whatever reason. And you look at him, and he's in the background, and he looks miserable. Like what he's doing is terribly wrong. And every time he's doing that, you see him grab his little flask, and he gets drunk.
Yeah.
Every single time he's doing something terrible because he can't handle it. He has to drown out his own thoughts.
Yeah.
He's always so snarky about everything. Like, too, like when they're training in the pool, he's like, in case we get into a battle at a pool. He's always so backhanded about having to be a Nazi. It's like he's like, oh, I got reprimanded. Now I have to work in this office with all these kids.
Yep.
And he seems to really not like what he's doing, but it's like he's stuck there, and that's it. And I think Sam Rockwell is great in this. And then he gets kind of a good redemption at the end where he basically like sacrifices himself to keep JoJo from being
absolutely
from being killed.
Yep.
Yeah, I love too how like he was designing his outfit that with strong sexual or homosexual overtones.
yeah.
And he's like, I'm finally gonna fight for Germany the way I want to.
Yeah.
He's like, I have a gun that it sets out. It has a horn on top to play
annoying music.
very annoying music. It is. It's really over the top. Yeah, the big cape and everything. I do. I love the drawing. It's so funny.
Yeah, and then Freddie Finkel comes up behind him with like his own little cape and stuff.
That's Alfie Allen. He plays
Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah.
Totally missed that. We were talking about that last night, and I don't know how I missed it.
He's a very unique looking person.
Oh, I just imagine him. I don't think I've ever seen him in Game of Thrones without that gross wispy beard.
Haven't seen him with a normal face instead of a mutilated one. Like,
yeah, exactly.
the look of someone who's been tortured.
Yeah, his eyes were a little bit too closed for me to recognize. What does he call him? In
Reek.
Reek. Yeah. He just didn't look like a reek to me. He looked like a normal boy.
That just makes me feel uncomfortable just even thinking about that.
Right.
This is terrible.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Like, I hate this guy, but I feel bad for him.
Right? Yeah.
I want to move on now to Yorkie, Jojo's best friend in this. I think some of the best comedic bits come when they're both on screen together. Like, absolutely, he steals it every time he's there.
100%.
Archie Yates is the actor's name. He's wonderful in this.
Yeah, he gets his own Home Alone movie now because of this role.
Yep.
Is he in the new Home Alone?
Yeah, he got his own one. Yeah.
That has already come out?
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care. I just know.
I didn't even know.
I will not watch it.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
Happy for him. That's fun.
That's good for you. Macaulay Culkin is in the movie.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, he is adorable.
Yeah.
And like one of my favorite scenes when they're sitting in a tent and Jojo's talking about how Hitler's going to be his best friend, and he just looks over. He's like, I thought I was your best friend. I'm like, oh my god, my heart just broke for this kid, man. And like he somehow just never dies.
Yeah.
And like in the book, his character's called something different. He dies like immediately.
Oh well,
like kind of funny. Yeah.
It's much better to keep him around.
Yeah.
He has some of the best like just comedic bits.
He's like, I just somehow can't die.
Yeah.
I love it when he walks up on Jojo while he's having a conversation with Hitler, and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were crying." He's like, "Are you a tear expert?" And Yorkie's like, "Oh, I guess not." I love that Jojo always finishes a lot of lines with he's like, "Case closed."
Yeah.
It's funny. There's so much fun dialogue in this. But yeah, Yorkie's great. I love how he shows up and he seems to be like more beaten up every time he pops back into the movie.
Yeah,
he just can't be killed.
Yeah. I think my favorite line from his was when he was asking Jojo like what he would do like if he saw a Nazi, and like, oh, I'd kill him. And he's like, how would you even know that you would find him? Like,
a Jew, not a Nazi.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just so
I know
bent up on xenophobia. But yeah, and he was like, how will they have horns and all these other things? And if not, they smell like Brussels sprouts. He's like, oh, I forgot about the Brussels sprouts. Which is that's not a anything that I've ever heard about. I don't know if they made that up for the movie or if that was like a real thing.
I know that they overblew a lot of stuff that when they talked about in German classes or whatever. Speaking of Jews, because I don't think they told them they had like horns and snakes for tongues.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, it's just like overplaying. Like, this is how fucking stupid this was.
Right. Yeah. Which is the whole point, is to really point out how dumb this was, and it really happened.
Yeah.
So I think we move on to probably the most touchy part of this movie. We need to talk about Hitler and Taika Waititi's portrayal of him.
Yeah.
I read a couple articles with him, and he said he had done a little research, like watched old German movies to try and get it right, and then he kind of just got away from that because he didn't really want to give enough respect to Hitler as a person to portray that character in any like accurate way. And so it's really funny because he's just a guy dressed up as Hitler with a New Zealand accent.
Yep.
And so I really love that he didn't like really try too hard to really embody this awful human being.
Yeah.
And he even says other stuff. He's like, I wasn't trying too hard because Hitler's a cunt.
Yeah.
And so I like how he's used in the movie, and I think it's sparing enough that it's not overly offensive to people who would have a big problem with that. And I also like it's like little elements that show him moving further away from Jojo as he's kind of learning more about like real life and how
There's that one scene where he's literally like watching from a distance
with binoculars.
Yeah.
And it's a great scene where he's talking with his mom and she's like explaining stuff to him like, this is the real world, like it just exists as like a little Nazi boy, like there's more beyond this. And I love that like Hitler's far away for that.
Yep.
And I think it's a good way to explain kind of the rift that's growing between him and this imaginary Hitler that he has so much reverence for. And then it just builds up beyond that. There's more stuff where, as the movie goes along, a lot of the Nazi propaganda on his wall is taken down. So at the beginning of the movie, there's posters and stuff everywhere, and then they slowly go away. So I love all this movement away from him adoring Hitler and needing that to be a part of like his personality. And I just really appreciate Taika Waititi not trying to take the role seriously and do justice for Hitler and how he actually was. I like that he's a joke in this.
Yeah, which is, I think, very appropriate. I mean, that's the whole point.
Certainly.
Yeah, and like him offering Jojo a cigarette every 20 fucking seconds of the movie. It's just like, he's not a good influence for kids.
He's like, I'm 10. Stop offering me cigarettes.
He's, and like one of my favorite parts is like when he's like, you're spending too much time with her, when he's trying to like write the book on Jews from learning stuff from Elsa. But then he ends up like falling in love with her and or like having love for her and all this stuff. And Hitler's all like, you're spending too much time with him. Joe's like, it was your idea, man. I love that. I just love that scene, because it's really just showing the conflict that JoJo's having in his mind. He's like starting to realize like, okay, this is wrong. Like, there's nothing, like, this guy is not a superhero. He's not who I thought he was. And I love it that's the way that works, and that they use comedy to make light of it. Not necessarily to make light of it, 'cause it's still a very serious subject, but to make it more palatable.
Right.
Yeah.
You talked about the unicorn, like Hitler eating it, and the scene just before that, Jojo's been like looking through the trash for like scraps of food. So it still like shows that another distance growing between them, where he's like, this is how I actually live now. Like, my mom's gone because of you. Yeah. And I'm eating scraps and you're here like with all this decadence and everything. So it shows that like rift between them grow even more. And I really love that you brought up Hitler jumping out the window like a superhero.
Yeah.
And then when Jojo finally comes to terms that he doesn't need this character anymore, he kicks him out the window. It's kind of a reversal of that. Yeah. Where it's like, awesome. now he's the villain and he's been struck down. And it's just like, I like that juxtaposed nature of, it's a similar shot, but in like the context is different for each one.
Yep.
So what I want to get into now is, I think a really strong or like a really implied part of this movie is it feels very American, but it's set in Germany. And one of the reasons I think that is, like we talked about, like the aesthetic of it. It doesn't look like war-torn Germany. It feels like something that like is happening right here in our own backyard. And another thing that lends to that is like just the little uniform they all have. They all look like little Boy Scouts. I mean, they it's something that feels like very Americana. And the idea of maybe a little American boy with an imagined Roosevelt or Truman talking to him, I think that would get a lot of an American audience to watch and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, America, like, let's go. But because it's set in Germany, like, and because it's Hitler, we're like, obviously like, oh, bad Nazis, bad. But this movie really feels like it could have been in America, and it could be about American propaganda and how people are kind of indoctrinated in a certain way here as well. And I think that's something that's important to bring up. And Taika Waititi even said that. He's like, this part of the story here is that feels relevant to what's going on now, because this was like during Trump administration stuff. And obviously Hollywood leans more liberal, so to have the idea of that appear in this film doesn't like really surprise me.
Yeah. I mean, necessarily, I don't think about it as like Trump or anything like that, as far as like individual parties. Like, and I look at it as, we're all growing up, we're all told to, support our troops, and like, which I totally am in support of, like every single person who is in our military as an individual, but I'm not in support of what, the United States military necessarily does all the time.
Which is a totally fair take, and if people have a problem with that, then
that's fine. I mean, you're more than welcome to take up with me. I understand. But I think just blindly backing anything because that's what we were told to do growing up is wrong. And that's implied a lot into this movie, and a lot into Jojo like awakening and realizing, hey, like, just because Germany's doing it, and like, I'm a German and I've been told all these things my whole life, doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm not special because I'm an American. I'm not special because, I'm a white, blue-eyed American dude. That's not the case. I'm just a person. Everyone out there is just people, and there's people losing their lives over dumb shit all the time. And we're raised to just support this stuff all the time. The American flag looks cool. Swastikas look cool to these kids, and we're just supposed to support it without without any question.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what this movie is about. It's about skin. It's about identity. You saying you're a blue-eyed blonde American, like Jojo has fallen into that dichotomy of seeing, where that double standard of seeing his scarred face and wishing people saw him for who he was, even while his ideas of Jews are all based on these grotesque physical features. So we have several, we have all the references to horns and scales and forked tongues. And when you realize that this movie is all about empathy. And I think a big part, like why I keep saying empathy all the time with movies and why I think Hollywood leans left, is because a lot of the ideals within leftist politics are about empathy. And that's why it's kind of a circle jerk over there. Like, you can make good points that the Democratic Party doesn't necessarily follow through, that it's really like we're all in service of capitalism, and we have these sets of ideals for this party as like being like blah blah blah.
There's that meme where it's like Republicans as president, it's like someone getting bombed. It's like liberals as president, someone getting bombed, but there's a Black Lives Matter sticker on the plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
my God, that's so good.
Oh yeah, and I think it's totally relevant. Like it's really like, let's say that this is the thing that we really want to energize our base around. The thing is like I get that. Like I just don't want to fall into this nihilistic landscape, like I was talking about with satire in South Park. Like what you do is then you just create this world where nothing really matters, everything is equally bad. The thing is like I would lean more towards left because it's going to be a generational thing. If we keep telling kids that these things are important, we need to have empathy for others and not based on skin, and like get them to the point where they're questioning whether like what are good things, and not just letting them fall into patterns of these paradigms that they're just given. Then what you'll ultimately create is a society in the future that cares more about people. Like that's really the thing. Is I don't think that there is, like, if I vote Democrat for the rest of my life, am I ever going to see the change that I want in my lifetime? Likely not. But I'm going to still vote for the party that has those ideals that are closer right to the way I want the world to be. And I think that's exactly what's happening here in this movie, is like, can they actually do anything in Nazi Germany but just hide and slap up posters and whatnot? No, they're really not very effective. They die for it, but it's about actions that are in line with who you are.
Planting seeds for trees that you'll never see.
Exactly.
And that's what makes the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run.
Yeah.
And you can't just like expect things to happen immediately, which is a big problem that I had with politics. Like just a few years ago, I was like, there's no point in doing anything because everything's just fucked all the time.
Right.
But the problem is you can't change everything right away, and that's not something you can do. You have to plant little seeds and try to make things better for everyone else in the future. You can't necessarily make it better for yourself, but that's not the point.
This is a tough and charged issue to get through, but I do think it's important to acknowledge there is an aspect of this movie that is a commentary on American politics, and so I think it's important to bring that up. And again, it makes all of that more palatable, because it is a tough thing to sit down and talk about. And so the fact that it's set up in this like satire comedy makes it easier to get through, and it makes it easier to recognize like those elements in this film without, pounding your fist and being outraged or being upset about, whatever political climate we're in. So I think it's a good aspect of this movie. I don't think it's necessarily the point all the time. I agree with what Calvin had to say. I do think it deals a lot with identity. So, but to have that as a layer to this movie, I think helps a lot.
Yeah,
and it
just
adds
layer.
a lot more depth to this movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, everything I just ranted about is extra stuff that I know that it means.
Yeah, it's just the frosting on the cake. It's not
a
little sugar on your ice cream.
Yeah, a little sugar on your ice cream.
But yeah, again, I think it's just an important thing to bring up. And we have talked about a couple movies lately that were like classics, but we don't really feel like they're saying anything. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to, again, watch a movie that it feels like it has a message in it. And so, whether or not, it doesn't really matter where you lean politically or what party you subscribe to, this is still important to just realize the commentary that's going on here.
Yeah, which I think it's massive. Is there are things to do that are right, whether it affects you now or not. And I think that's a huge thing. And like I think why Scarlett Johansson's character is so important.
Right.
because she does things. She plants seeds in Jojo's mind that she never gets to see because she loses her life doing that stuff.
Yeah, but ultimately it leads to the outcome she wanted.
Yeah, of him being a good person.
And I think that's really the moral of this story is like when you extend that that forgiveness that you want to of yourself and your actions that you want extended to, and you want other people to extend to you. When you extend that back out to the world, then everything works a lot better. Right. We talk a lot about non-zero sum games. Empathy is just another level of a non-zero sum game. I'm just giving you compassion, and I'm getting back the same amount of compassion, and we're both gaining something from this interaction.
Mm-hmm. Right. You want me to lighten this up with a good fun fact?
Yep. Yeah, I don't feel like we've had enough fun facts.
So in the office that Captain K has been sent to, that he's going to work in, they're like, oh yeah, all the Hitler Youth clones.
Yeah.
Those are Roman Griffin Davis's younger brothers who are twins. And reason they picked them is because it was going to like streamline the budget and like cost for like duplicating them in CGI. So there was 2 of them.
Yeah.
So they got to have a couple of them. I love that idea. It's like, looking out for the VFX artists, like, oh, you don't have to duplicate them 8 times. You only have to do it 4 times. We have 2 of them. So I love that. And yeah, it's fun to see his little brothers in it.
Yeah,
I think that's
awesome.
neat. And then another part of like that scene, Jojo's given like propaganda posters to go hang up. The translation for them say like "Free Germany" and "Fight the Party." So that's another part of Sam Rockwell's character, Captain K, that I think he's like we said, he's kind of against what he's doing, but he's stuck there. But it seems like he has subtle ways to like really put out what he actually feels and what he wants to do. So the propaganda that's coming out of his office is anti-Nazi.
Yeah.
So I like that. It's another like wrinkle into his character that you wouldn't know unless you looked up the translation and figured it out.
Yeah.
But it's a neat little like subtle aspect to that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's I think he's a super, super awesome character.
Yeah.
And he's subtle enough that where you have to pay attention and find the little things. Like he's a good ass dude. Like he's just stuck and there's nothing he can do, except there are things he can do and he's doing them. It's just hard to tell. Like the scene in the pool when Jojo asks him, what should I do if I find a Jew? And he tells him like, oh, report it. And then they'll kill the Jew, whoever hit the Jew, and probably some other people just to be safe.
Yeah.
And obviously planting in the brain like, Jojo, you'll get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he knows that Rosie has a Jew in her house because they're friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's so subtle that you don't realize how important he is until later. And he's incredibly important. Like even though like he does have some major plot points, you can see him almost as important as Rosie is to Jojo's development. You just don't realize like some of the things he's actually doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to move on to the climax, the culmination of this movie, where like Elsa said, she's like she'll be free when she gets to dance in the street and everything. And so like the battle in the town has ended, and you see like Americans drive by with the American flag and their Jeep and everything, and it's over now. And so she gets to go outside, and it's such a cute, fun little scene where they're dancing, and it's funny because Jojo's trying to snap his fingers, but he can't snap because there's an earlier scene where he's trying to, and he like puts down the knife and claps, because he still can't do it. And it's fun to see him at the end of the movie. He still like can't really snap. It's a fun scene, and it's a nice way to like give a good end, I think, to Jojo and to Elsa's character. I love the end of this movie.
Yeah, I think it's a very very neat bow on the top of Jojo's character development, where it shows him choosing to be like his mom Rosie as opposed to anything else. Because major thing, he ties Elsa's shoe
right
before she goes out, which is what Rosie did for him. And the line he says before they step outside, he's like, "It's dangerous out there." And he goes, "Extremely," which is what Rosie said to Jojo after he got his scars and stuff.
Yeah,
they went outside.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's a perfect tie-in of all these little things.
And then they go out there and they dance, and it's just like exactly what she would have wanted.
And that's actually what she said. We're not going to be free until we can dance in the streets.
Yep.
Yeah, for a movie that deals with pretty heavy topics and seems to make fun out of it, it's a really nice ending to when you really break it down is a movie that deals with a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So I like that you can still like pull that out in the end.
Yeah, it's still very heartfelt, and like you feel good.
Yeah.
Like you feel like okay, I mean the right thing happened and everyone's happy.
Yeah. Although I don't think that this movie is goofy enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the dark parts are so dark that they really need to be utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
To really tease out the problem with the thinking. Like I know that they played up a lot of things.
Like Rebel Wilson's character, just
yeah,
completely over the top.
Oh my god!
Yeah, exactly. What a wonderful year to be a girl.
Babies.
Yeah, what a wonderful year to be a girl in Germany.
Well, she's like, here's the posters and here's your gun. Yeah, though I usually hate her in movies.
Yeah,
she's utilized well in this.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Mm-hmm. And then I think the last thing I want to know what you guys think about whether Jojo was ever really a Nazi, and why you think that he was or wasn't a Nazi.
I'm gonna go ahead and go with no. And I think that there's two big lines that Rosie and Elsa say that dignify that. And Elsa says, "You're just a little boy who wants to be part of a group and like swastikas." And when Rosie says he's not a ghost. And then the book burning scene where they're all standing there burning books, and you can see the discomfort on Jojo's face. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh wait, everyone's having fun. I should have fun too," type of thing. And then obviously the rabbit scene where he wouldn't kill the rabbit.
Yeah.
And they're all like, "You're not going to be like all of his counterparts, or whatever. They're no, that kid's not going to be a Nazi. He can't just murder innocent things for no reason." And yeah, it was just never in him. I just don't think he just wanted to be, like me growing up. I wanted to be Brett Favre. It's what I wanted to be. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, I'm not a quarterback, dude. I have bad shoulders. And it's just, it's just something that he thought, like, in his mind was this, like, great thing to look up to and to become. And then he realizes what it is, and he realizes that's not who he is or who he could ever be or who he wants to be. And yeah, I just don't think that he ever was a Nazi, no.
I couldn't disagree more. It is blatantly obvious that he subscribes to this party, and like that is the only thing he cares about. And I'm joking. No, I think the thing that really like shows that the most to me is how his own portrayal of Hitler changes throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Like Calvin talked about in the first scene, he's like getting really hyped up on Nazism and like being a part of that culture and that group. And then at the end of the movie, Hitler shows up and Hitler's like yelling at him. And he's like being mean. And so like the whole like persona of Hitler has changed for him. And he's showed up in a uniform that's like kind of torn up. So just
bullet in his head.
Yeah. And so everything about Hitler, in terms of personality and his, the way he's portrayed has changed for Jojo. And so it really showed to me that it was really just a surface level thing. Like you said, it was just being a part of a group. And so no, I don't ever think that he was really a Nazi. And part of that, like you said, was he's a boy.
Yeah.
He doesn't know.
That aligns with true Christianity.
We're getting deep into really charged issues on this episode.
Yeah, you want to be part of a group, buddy.
I know, right? So that's what I say. It's like I think that too much. Everything should be about actions. Whether you're an atheist or a Christian, it doesn't really matter what you believe. It's just all about what you do.
Yeah. And empathy is a big part of that, Calvin.
Absolutely, exactly. And so that's why I think movies are so important, especially movies like this.
Oh, yeah. Its utilization of satire to tell a real story, I think, works out really well. All right, so I think we're getting close to wrapping this one up. Jane, how many double knots would you give this entire shoes?
This is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's very heartfelt to me. It's obviously not perfect or anything like that, but I'm giving this a 9.6.
Oh, okay.
Big fan, yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up, and it's always nice to...
Like, so outside of like cinematography and things like that, like it's still like I still love those things about this movie, but it's just like the heart and the story and the meaning behind it that I very much like.
And it's always good to get a peer into like the movies that we personally really like, because we talk about a lot of movies that maybe we are not like totally invested in or have a real tie to, and so I like when we get to kind of take a break from watching other things that kind of just exist and we are interested in talking about them, and then change it to be like, this is a movie I actually care about.
Yeah.
And being able to explore those and like why this movie mattered to you. So I like that you brought this one up. I thought it was a really good pick.
Yeah.
I'd probably double knot this like 7 times.
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think the humor works. And like
still
I said,
a very good score.
Yeah. And I think it brings up some real issues. And again, it's one of those movies that's good to have a discussion surrounding. So I like it a lot for those reasons. And I love costumes. This one had great costumes. So that always gets marks for me. So I love that. Yeah, the aesthetic of this. And
and Yorkie's like like crumbling costume.
It's just worse every time he's.
Yeah, the latest in German innovation.
I love it when he drops the cannon. Jojo.
Oh my god, it's so good. Yeah. He's great. Like he's absolute scene stealer.
Yeah.
You're so right.
100%.
Calvin, where do you put this one?
So I don't think it's great. And like I was saying, I really wish that they had made it even more ridiculous and surreal sometimes to really drive home. Like it has to be in proportion to how ugly everything is. And
Yeah.
I don't think it is here. But like you were saying, like we've watched so many movies that just don't matter. They don't mean anything. And I think this is one of those ones that really, really does mean something. It's a great, I mean, it's brutal. It's ugly. I don't think it's a kid's movie, but I think it's important for kids to watch.
It's so weird because it has the whimsical feel of a kid's movie.
Yeah. So I would say that I'd give this like an 8 too.
Wow.
Pretty good.
I
Yeah.
just think the message is so important and is delivered in a way that it fits. It's the only way that you can really tell this story and make it matter.
Right. I always hate when I have the lowest score on a movie I actually liked.
Yeah, I always have very high scores, especially with anything with Scarlett Johansson in it. So as long as we don't ever watch Ghost in the Shell, that train will keep rolling.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
Right.
I like any live action anime remake. Like I just will not. When Cowboy Bebop came out, like you cannot do that.
Well, that's
to a
already been
classic.
canceled.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I was like, good. It's absolutely like they decided to make it like an actual narrative through the first full scene. The anime is all just serialized. None of the stories are connected, but then the final episode ties everything together in an amazing web of thematic elements, and it's like you just builds to a single moment where you're like, whoa,
Right.
that was powerful in a show that was very goofy up until that point.
Yeah.
Well, good review on Cowboy Bebop. Thank
Yeah,
you.
never seen that.
Don't ever
Beep-boop.
watch the live action of anything.
Right. All right. Well, with that, we're wrapping this one up. You can find us on any platform that you want to find a podcast on, like Spotify or SoundCloud or Apple Music. We also upload all these to YouTube, so go ahead and leave a comment. Suggest something we should watch. Tell us what we're doing well. Tell us what we could. Tell us what we're doing wrong. I like constructive criticism or unconstructive criticism.
Break us down.
Yeah. So with that, thank you for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.